What if the greatest terror of your life wasn't hiding in the dark basement, but upstairs, walking down the hallway while you believed you were completely alone? Imagine receiving an anonymous phone call late at night with a cold, almost whispered question. Have you checked the children? And before you can respond, the call drops. But the phone rings again and again, and the voice insists. The babysitter needs to check the children. What would you do if you discovered those calls weren't coming from far away, but from inside the house? The story of the babysitter and the man upstairs is one of the oldest, darkest, and most disturbing urban legends in the United States. Unlike monsters, ghosts, or supernatural creatures, this legend taps into a far more intimate and realistic fear: domestic terror. The tale began circulating strongly in the 1950s and 1960s, a period when babysitting had become common among American teenagers. While parents went out to dinners, dates, or movie nights, 13, 14, and 15-year-old girls were left alone in large, often isolated houses, responsible for caring for young children. And it was exactly in this setting that the nightmare took shape. As suburban culture grew after World War II, neighborhoods expanded with large houses, second floors, attics, basements, and long distances between homes. Perfect places for someone to hide without being seen. The babysitter legend grew stronger during a time when the country feared home intruders, criminals who took advantage of unlocked doors or partially open windows. It was a period where the feeling of suburban safety began to crack, and this legend captured that fear perfectly. The tale spread through oral storytelling books, true crime magazines, and even local newspapers, always with variations. Sometimes the intruder was an escaped psychiatric patient, in others, a serial killer. In older versions, the man had been hiding in the attic for days, and in some stories, the killer had slipped inside the house when the family left. The legend became so widespread that it inspired horror films like When a Stranger Calls 1979 and influenced dozens of others. But before it hit the big screen, it was already whispered at midnight in camps, schools, sleepovers, and basement gatherings, always with the same chilling question: have you checked the children? The night was silent. The large two-story house seemed even bigger after the parents closed the door and headed to their car. The teenage babysitter, whose name changes depending on the version, Jill, Lisa, Megan, waved politely as the couple disappeared down the dark street. She had done this job before. It was simple: put the children to bed, tidy up the living room, and wait for the parents to return. Easy. The children, ages 6 and 8, were already asleep upstairs. The babysitter walked down the staircase slowly, holding the railing. Everything seemed normal. The house was beautiful, full of framed photos, a cold fireplace, and a large window that faced the dark backyard. She sat on the couch, opened her backpack, and began studying to pass the time until the phone rang. It wasn't common for someone to call that late, but she didn't think much of it. Hello. Silence. For a few seconds, she thought the call had dropped. But then a male voice, low, hoarse, slow, asked, Have you checked the children? She froze. Who is this? The line went dead. Maybe just a prank. She tried not to worry, put the phone down, and kept studying. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. Hello. This time, the heavy breathing on the other end made the back of her neck prickle. The babysitter needs to check the children. The same phrase, the same tone, almost like a command. She hung up quickly, trying to steady her breathing. She walked to the front door and locked it, then checked every window one by one. Nothing seemed out of place. When she returned to the living room, the phone rang a third time. The voice, now firmer, repeated, "Go upstairs and check the children." She hung up so fast the sound echoed through the room. Her heart was pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. She did what anyone would do. She called the police. She explained that someone was harassing her and described the calls. The officer, speaking calmly, told her to stay on the line in case the man called again. And he did, almost immediately. This time, the voice wasn't whispering. It was frantic, anxious. "Why won't you go upstairs?" The officer told her. "Keep him talking. We're tracing the call." She tried. "Who are you? Why are you doing this? Go up the stairs." The call grew more intense, heavier, more urgent. A moment later, the police told her, "Get out of the house, right now." She hesitated. "But the children?" "Now. Don't go back upstairs. Leave through the front door." She ran. She stumbled through the living room, opened the front door with shaking hands, and nearly fell down the porch steps. She saw the police car approaching with flashing lights at the end of the street. She sprinted toward the officers, breathless, terrified. And then she heard the words she would never forget for the rest of her life. The calls were coming from inside the house. The officer explained that the trace showed the call wasn't coming from an external line. It came from one of the house's own internal phones. The man was already inside with her the whole time. And worse, he was upstairs, exactly where the children were sleeping. The police rushed into the house with their flashlights out, while the babysitter tried to explain through tears and shock what had just happened. The hallway echoed with the officers' hurried footsteps as they climbed the stairs carefully, each step creaking as if announcing something that didn't want to be discovered. Upstairs, the children's bedroom door was slightly open. One of the officers signaled to the other and pushed the door slowly. The thin beam of the flashlight cut through the darkness and revealed both children curled up in bed, alive, but shaking, as if they had heard everything, as if they knew someone had been there. And then came the detail that the babysitter would never forget once the police told her later. The children were pointing at the closet. The officers exchanged looks. They walked toward the door, slow and steady. One of them grabbed the handle, took a deep breath, and yanked it open. The closet was pitch black inside, but the smell hit them immediately. Sweat, dust, and something metallic, almost like dried blood. For a brief second, nothing moved, until, in the corner between boxes and hanging clothes, a pair of eyes gleamed. The man was curled up, motionless, watching everything with an expression that was empty, yet alert. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look afraid. He looked like he had been waiting. The police dragged him out and pinned him to the floor. He was thin, wearing torn clothes, like someone who had been wandering the streets for days. But inside his pocket, they found a kitchen knife, a pocket knife, a piece of fake beard, and a small notebook filled with notes about houses in the neighborhood. The most disturbing page. The very house they were in, with dates, with schedules, with observations about when the family left, and a final entry written just a few hours earlier, tonight, when the babysitter gets distracted. As the officers pulled him away, the man kept repeating softly, almost singing, "She needs to check the children. She needs to check the children." The babysitter heard it all from outside the house, and she swore she would never answer a phone in an empty home again. The story of the babysitter and the man upstairs has been told for decades, and the scariest part is that it didn't come from nowhere. Historical investigations show that since the 1940s, there have been documented cases of intruders hiding inside homes, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. Sometimes in the attic, sometimes in the basement, sometimes in the room right next to yours. And the reason this legend lasted so long is simple. It messes with what is supposed to be safe. Your house, your home, your bedroom, your second floor, the place where you should feel protected, and where someone could be watching without you ever noticing. The phone call coming from inside the house became a symbol of invisible surveillance, hidden vulnerability, silent danger. There are no monsters in this story, no ghosts, no demons. There is something far more real. A human, a calculating, patient, cold human being who can be anywhere, leave no traces, and sometimes hide just one floor above where you're standing right now. And that's why this story keeps being told, retold, filmed, and feared as one of the most terrifying American urban legends. Because deep down, it plants a question we all avoid asking. Am I really alone inside my house? If this story gave you chills, if you looked upstairs before finishing this video, then you're in the right place. On Urban Secrets, every week brings a new legend, mystery, or case that makes you question what you know, and wonder what might be hiding in the dark corners of your own home. So, subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any investigation. Leave a like if this legend made you uncomfortable. And tell me, would you answer the phone after hearing this story, or would you let it ring? See you in the next episode. And remember, never ignore a call, especially if it comes from inside the house.